Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 91st episode of the HSBG podcast. I'm your host, Educatedcollins. I'm here with my constant co-host, Shady Bunny. Shady, how you doing?
Doing excellent, Collins. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, honestly. I've been having a different experience over a week, generally playing games not from the standard, but it's been pretty fun. Kind of reminds me of like starting a channel from old. That's kind of the feeling I get. Like, oh yeah, here's new people. How y'all doing? Nice to meet you. That kind of thing. Uh,
When you say different games, do you just mean Snap,
yeah,
or you've been playing a
just
lot of variety? Okay.
no. I have not been the variety man. It's I don't know. Maybe it's not my vibe or so. I just want to get good at
Oh,
one game.
same here. I mean, yeah. I know a lot of people struggle with that, where they like, if they could choose, whatever they streamed, it'd be like a different game every 2 weeks or whatever. But yeah, I
I
know that urge.
I mean, that actually does sound fine, especially if you like single player games, right? Like where you just like
Yeah, yeah.
play a single player game and then you finish it and you play a different one, right? But like
There's
we
people
we
that do that, right?
yeah, we like the competitive games, right? Like the games where you're playing against other people. So like refining that craft that sometimes that pulls us in. So makes sense.
Yeah. It's hard to get good in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Well, maybe for you.
Unless it's Mercenaries Day One, then it's rank one.
Maybe for you it's hard.
Yeah, I don't have that instant rank one quality about me.
Mentality. Yeah.
I don't think it's a mentality. uh, Change podcast name to the Refinery. Yeah.
Alright. But we do have the podcast for you today. It's a little weird because I'm not like as knowledgeable like the little day to day changes of BGs right now, right? I kind of know the big things, right? And anytime a patch comes out, any extra news, right? Like, I always catch that, but like the little day to days, like that one's evading me, so you're definitely gonna have to fill in the gaps of what I may be missing about the meta and things like that. But we do have our weekly overview. We kind of already
Sure.
went through that,
Yeah,
but
we pretty much did that. Yeah.
but any other changes for you in particular in terms of BGs for your week?
So I've just been playing my usual amount, and
Mm-hmm.
I can feel that, especially the grinders, they've definitely put in that big point lead where I'm like front page ish right
Mm-hmm.
now, or I'm like, I don't know, probably like between 23 and 27 or something,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how much the other people climb. So like it's been fine. It's just like steady progress, but I can just notice that, like at the start, if you're not 12K, 13K, 14K, it goes pretty fast, I would say, to get like 12K. I think
Right.
that's when you really feel it slows down.
Mm-hmm.
You almost have to wait until people catch up, so they have enough points for you to take it from them. So I could see a lot of people sprinting towards that. Of course, XQN's already 13K, but whatever, it's XQN. The Yeah, so my week has been fine. I would say I've just been playing, and some days have been break even ish,
Mm-hmm.
which are not great days. I think
Right.
that's
Right.
at this stage you usually want to have some kind of progression, but then some days are like plus 400. So yeah, overall it's been a very nice upward trajectory, and I'm having a good time as well. I think that's important. I was a little bit afraid with quests rotating out. I really enjoyed that meta, but there's a good amount of things to do right now. I'd say there's still some minions that really stand out, and we can
Mm-hmm.
talk about that for sure.
Okay.
The next segment.
Well, the next segment is talking about the end of January results, right? So we do
Oh yeah, sure.
they did post the January ladder finishes. So
I'm so out of it. Yeah, I honestly didn't even see who got top five. So let's have a look.
so yeah, for NA, it's like literally all Japanese players. actually, actually,
Which is the classic. The classic, yeah.
yeah. Now that I'm looking, I haven't really looked either. So this is kind of interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
Like you read the first three and they're like Matsu. Oh wait, no.
yeah, yeah. That series also Japanese.
I know, but it's like the first name you can read.
Ugh,
Is
yeah.
it all Japanese or is there because the third is the third name? Uh,
The third name could be Japanese because that could be Japanese kanji. So,
okay,
um,
sure,
and it's not Korean. So
sure, okay,
yeah,
agreed.
it very well could be, and it's unlikely to be Chinese either, right? Because they can't compete. So I assume they wouldn't put in the effort. So very likely. And then Savage is a name I'm not even familiar with as well, right? It's not a name that was in other Lobby Legends, I think, at least for NA. So
Yeah, to illustrate how volatile these first 2 weeks are, Beater was number 9. He's number 1 right now. Savage, right, was
mhm.
number 5. He's number 9. Matsuri dropped out of the top 5. So yeah, just really showcasing how that volatility if you're not even getting a full month essentially to look at your first result. So but hey, I mean, those are the rules, and I'm sure that they tried really really hard. They grinded really hard to get the good finish, and then maybe the days after it's like, okay, well I've done that. Obviously, I still want to keep doing well, but it's not as important right now. I
Well,
want to
and obviously there's going to be a big mental relaxation, right? Like after you get the finish, you're gonna be like, okay, I can chill. Maybe I was fatigued. Let me stop for a couple of days to recover, and then like get back on the grind. So, um, I do think it's definitely kind of fine to like go back and talk about this system again, right? Because like I'm not participating in this environment, right? Because I didn't think it'd be worth it. And I also understood how much grinding was required because Matsuri is like a known grinder, just
Oh
plays
yeah,
games hours on end, and that first 2 weeks is so critical, right? Where this next month coming up, right, you're gonna have a lot more time to like really establish your lead, establish your position, but like the amount of effort and games I would have to play to kind of compete with some of these known grinders just really didn't seem that um encouraging, I guess, of a situation to put myself in. So decided not to do it. But another thing I thought was pretty interesting was I took these pictures from HS Esports Twitter, right?
hmm yeah,
And they just have the top 10. I mean, like, have you?
yeah.
They know that they're trolling with this top 100 finish.
And and really, when you look at it, it's like number 6 to 10 is also like, yeah, whatever. It's I'll put that on there because it's maybe a little bit too weird if it's just top 5. But for next month, you might just be able to show them the top 5. But yeah,
So
it's a good point. It's a really good point that you raise.
it's just
Even they
silly.
know that
Yeah.
it's fluff. It's so much fluff, right? It's like it does not matter if you have if you're ranked 50 or whatever. It's
Yeah,
completely
if
irrelevant.
you're out of the top 10, really, like it's so unlikely that six of these players will move down into a position where you can catch up to them.
Yeah,
A lot of these players are very good, like known names, right? There's a lot of players from previous lobby legends, and those people are grinders but also consistent, right? Like that's the problem, right? Some of these people in this first 2 weeks might just be grinders and they're able to get that lead because they played more than you did, but a lot of these people are both grinders and very consistent at the game, so it's hard to see them really faltering um, from their from these top 10 spots as long as they want to push for it. So it's just so rough if you're in any other position. I would say just you kind of have to look at this and say, okay, this is like the main starting point where you have a chance, and then if you can make it to rank 1, then maybe you're back into the conversation, right? If you're like rank 10 to 20 right, and then you make it to ranked one, then you're back in the
But
conversation. But a lot of that is
kindly request XQN to not play for a whole month or so, and then maybe
yeah,
maybe you
right.
can catch up with
That's
everything. No, I
true.
mean, we both talk about it from a mathematical point of view, but from a realistic point of view, if you're rank 20, you're not taking rank 1. Who the fuck's rank 20 that takes rank 1
Uh,
a month later? Like,
I've
no.
done it, theoretically.
Yeah, I mean, that's in a different setting though. That's in a I would say that's not in a setting where it's like those 2 weeks where the floodgates are open and
Yeah,
people
that's true.
play so
Yeah,
much,
yeah,
right?
and
So
it would like the difference between rank 20 and rank one was like 1,000 MMR or something. Like
yeah.
it wasn't a huge gap where it might be right now. So it definitely is different. I do agree. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, for sure, I do agree. Rank 20 here and then taking rank one next month is probably a lot more difficult than
It's a different caliber of
yeah,
player almost,
yeah.
right? Where the like I myself, like I said, I'm not even top 20 right now.
Hmm.
Near the end of the season, right? I'm a top 10 player, right? But still for me to grab rank 1, especially given just how much people knew the volume would matter and how much they put in, you still have to play really well and then also overcome the deficit where
Yeah,
that the deficit is huge. It's a lot bigger than it would normally be because
yeah.
people really really pushed hard.
Another problem is that the rank one is actually a huge priority. Where like in other seasons where I took rank one, like we were just shooting for top 16, and rank one didn't
Yeah.
have any extra value associated for people to like contest you back. Like maybe the people like rank two, rank three would fight you back, just cause there was something to push forward. But like here, like rank one is a meaningful position that matters. So, like let's
Yeah.
say I get it. I'm gonna have to. I can't like. Oh, I'm rank one. Let me stop playing. No, no, no. The people behind me are gonna shoot back and try to get that spot right back. So you can't really relax, even if you are that number one spot. You still have to keep climbing ahead before you start feeling safe. So it's not it's harder. It's even harder this season because it actually matters compared to other seasons where you were really just shooting for top 16, top 10, and like that was okay. Like there was no extra bonus for being determinately rank one where it is now. So,
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think it's ever been a priority other than the
hmm,
glory,
yeah,
right? And now there's a real upside. So,
yeah,
number 3, number 2, they're gonna push really,
yeah.
really hard. Yeah.
So
Oh
yeah,
well. I feel like we did the not that we can't repeat it, right? And
yeah,
but
but we did do justice in it.
yeah,
The
for people that listen to that episode, we definitely explained it. So there's a comment in chat about the rank is not about being good, not always. It's very dangerous, right, to start playing with that because it's very easy to be on the outside, to not be the grinder and say, they just played a lot. The people that are here, right, that are in the top 5, make no mistake, they're exceptionally good at the game.
hmm,
So we made a conscious decision to not play these marathon sessions, which, in my opinion, are required if you're going to make a cutoff period within 2 weeks. I think you have to put in a big amount, high volume, just because the meta is new and all the little things you learn that are broken, the faster you learn Ghoul of the Feast is insane. The faster you learn, you always sell into a Chronormu. The faster you learn, a Nubrak is broken or whatever. All these things you can then farm because a lot of your games are against mediocre players, right? Like,
yikes! Don't tell them
well,
that.
compared to the average player base, these are very high level players.
Hmm.
But compared to the top 10, these are very average players. So these like top 10 players, they then farm people that are quite a bit below their skill level, and they have this huge information advantage of knowing what to exploit. So they can put in these huge marathon sessions and just farm. We saw some people just run away with like several thousand points above the next, let's say the 5 or 6 people at the top had like several thousands higher. So it was very possible to really, really exploit that information advantage. But does that make them worse players? No. It just means that they were willing to put in that extra dimension, right? That extra effort of I'm going to be good, but I'm also going to put in a huge amount of volume at the very start to gain that information advantage. And I want to be very conscious of that, to not sit on the outside and say, oh, they're not that good. They just played a lot. Because people do that all the time. And, if you're not rank one, if you're not up there, I don't think you could talk shit. So, yeah, I do say that these are very, very good players
What
that
you
just
can do is get
try.
rank one yourself and then say I'm not that good, and then we'll believe you. But other than
Yeah,
that, you don't
yeah,
really have any
yeah.
any credit for that. Another thing is just look at the people that are up there, right? Look at the players that did do it, and like really evaluate for yourself, are these bad players, right? Like Japanese players have been known for being exceptional at this game, right? And like they just took all the spots. Like, are they bad? No, they're not bad. And then look at some of these names: XQN, Goddammit, Oliad, Tumich, Rojohin. All these players have played in Lobby Legends before. All of them, and like you have to know they have some level of skill to just immediately 2 weeks. I can do it again. And then even the names, right? There's Shiro, there's Altsume, Alutume, sorry, and Lightning, right? Those people have also played in Lobby Legends before. So like this whole list is just of top five is just people you've seen before, people that have played, people who have known to be exceptional. How can you say they're not very good? Like they're just dedicated and also very skilled, very consistent. That's why they've played in multiple Lobby Legends and they showcase
Yeah.
it here.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is also maybe a bit on our part in terms of
Alatimu.
communication,
Sorry, I gotta
talking about the. Oh yeah, all good.
gotta get the name right.
Like, we were shitting a bit on the system, right? Or maybe not a bit. We were shitting on the system.
I
So
still am. I
yeah,
still
yeah,
am.
we
Like
can continue shitting on the system. So I think it's easy for listeners and viewers to mistake that for like, oh, so the system doesn't reward skill, right? It's like, no, that's not true. There's just well, I mean, if you really want our opinion, like we talked about it for over an hour, it still rewards skill. It's just a lot more exclusive, and there is an additional barrier to entry, which is that huge grind at the start
mhm,
because they somewhat foolishly, in my opinion, allowed the first 2 weeks to count for a full month.
yeah.
The first 2 weeks of the reset carry as much weight as the last 2 months, which is ridiculous.
I would say it carries
It-
more weight than the last 2 months. Like I would say those first 2 weeks is the most important, and everything else is secondary. Because if you haven't made top like a high ranking here, like your determination for the following 2 months is like very, it's gonna be significantly affected by what your performance was made here. So I'd say like this 2 months is the most important 2 months of the whole thing. Like everything else is like dwarfs the how important these first 2 weeks are. By 2 months, I mean 2 weeks, right? These first 2 weeks are. That's my thought process on that.
Anyways, that's how we can move on.
Hmm. For sure. Anyways, yeah, let's definitely move on. Now we just have the meta discussion here. Just kind of your thoughts about the meta. I have not really been playing too much. I played a couple of games earlier in the morning, just now. Played Future Side twice. That was fun. One game was super easy. Other game I kind of whiffed and died. So I saw the full experience.
That is the full range of results on future side. I've stopped playing him just because the downside is too much. And
but it was so easy. The win was
yeah,
so easy.
but it's more like okay, so I will look at the other heroes, right? And
Right,
if
right,
I
right.
am
Yeah.
confident that I can do
To
well, I'll take the other
to
hero.
be fair, I knew the second future side game I had bad minion types for him. So I did mention that, and I just said, okay, I just won. Let me play. Let me run it back. But I think strategically, I was like, this is wrong, but I don't care about my rating, right? I just was like, let's go for it. But yeah, I could see that I had a much harder time the second go around compared to the first one, where I had much better minion types from my the game plan I wanted. So.
So anything else? Well, essentially, this is kind of cool where you're not playing as much, but you still play some, right? So
Mm.
you played some today. Are there any things that you noticed were like, oh,
Well,
this feels
Undead's not broken, I would
it is
say.
not. No,
Yeah,
I
so
agree.
they kind of did that where I could do other things. I still think that Cyborg Dragon is the problem. Also, Varden with the chrome. Like, who thought this was okay? Like, I don't understand. How can they put
Well,
that in and like not remove it or
I, I
say it's a
I
bug?
think that so the way how I explain this to my streamer when I talk about it. So we're talking about Chronorma,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
Chronorma is the dragon that
Oh,
gains
I
stats.
should put that on screen.
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah, yeah. You keep
Um,
talking. I got
yeah, so Chronorma is the dragon that keeps the stats from everything you sell. So it's like Anima Bribe on a stick, for those of you who remember that quest, which wasn't in for that long, right? It was only in the first half, wasn't in after the patch. But yeah, anyways, the way how I explain this is that this card is amazing without any help because it allows you to. Oh, apparently I'm a little quiet,
you.
but
Okay, I can turn you up. No. That might be
I just
my
jammed
fault.
the microphone
No, that's my
in my
fault.
face.
That's my fault.
All right, that's fine. Well, we're gonna have microphone in face anyway. So if you have like you are almost always going to be in a position where you have several units that you played in the early and the mid game that you would rather get out of, right? So we're talking Wrathweaver, Tavern Tipper, but even like a buffed Ghoul of the Feast, you buffed it like 2 times with the 2/7 and then it was good, but you don't really want to play it in the end game. We're talking some random Terragosa that caught some buffs. You could sell Ball of Minions. So there are plenty of opportunities for you to really want this card when you have no additional help for it. So we are talking the fairly common worst case scenario is that it is amazing. So that's a good indicator for cards that broken, right? Like worst case scenario, like obviously there are some cases where you just sold and you rolled it and this and that. So sometimes you're not going to sell, but the first one you see is almost always going to be cashed in. So a common worst case scenario is that it is amazing. So then we go one level higher and we go into, well, what if I have a buffed shop? I've played Nomi, I have Overseer, I've played some Elementals. Now it's downright nasty because you can just buy things from the shop and it's actually gold efficient in terms of stats. You can have stuff on your board that is probably already quite large because you've been buffing the shop, so probably demons are in. You've consumed a little bit with the Devourer, etc. So then that's really good. And then we go one step further, and then we go into heroes that really abuse the mechanic. So this is where Collins was at when he said, oh, you can just have a Varden and have multiple Chronormus in the shop. What happens is that every minion you sell applies to every Chronormu in the shop. So you can have 3 or 4 Chronormus in the shop with Varden. Now, you need to, of course, be still strong enough, right? So you're going to have to buy a few of them. So but yeah, that you can already imagine that when you sell a 2020 and there's 3 Chronormas in the shop, you've just added 60/60 to the shop. So a net gain of 40/40, which is ridiculous, right? And that's honestly quite humble. 2020, you could probably do a lot better than that. But let's say the most common result will be 2 in the shop. I think 3 is usually pushing it a bit because you're gonna have to buy one of them to not take any damage. But that's still ridiculous. The fact that you can roll 2 at the same time and double the stats effectively. But there's others, right? There's Mutinous, so you can put on everything on Chronormu and then eat it on top of a Deflectobot or a Hydra. That's pretty amazing. Vol'jin can do it without the extra steps of having to sell the board. But then again, if you're playing Chronormu, it's quite easy to sell your board. So Mutinous is kind of like Vol'jin in that regard. You can play Jandis. Jandis can swap this back into the shop and just keep buffing, which is The moment I realized that, right? So what you can do with Jandas is you can have one on your board, then roll another one in the
Then
shop,
put
then
the other
swap
one
them,
in the.
put it back in, and then puff them at the same time. So there are, and I'm sure there's several interactions that I just haven't seen yet that are absolutely stupid. So I think this is a card where a lot of really high level players saw this coming. I think like 2 days in or so, I just realized, oh, always sell. Okay, and always sell almost everything. Okay, that was my standard operating procedure. 2 days into the meta, it's like when you roll this card, always sell and sell almost everything. And every time I did it, I was like, that was worth it. Okay, that's fine. I just needed to get that in my brain. Like it's fine. Especially at the start, people weren't really favoring Leroy and Queen because of the undead tokens.
Right.
So you just got away with murder, right? They like put like 300 on this thing, and no one has a poison. So right now there is more poison, but you just put it in the back, right? And you run your own like you know how it is. You have this big Myrmidon, you slap a shield on it, you put it in the back, and then it's rare that it connects with poison. So usually if it dies to poison, it's really unlucky on your part, or you didn't really have any defense. You didn't have taunts. You didn't have your Chronormu further to the back. I see people putting it like first sometimes, and that's painful to my eyes, right? Because it just chunks into the Divine Shield of a Queen and does nothing. But when you play this well, this card is very, very broken, and I can absolutely see this being removed or just like at the very, very, very minimum, you cannot have it so that it buffs both copies. Because I mean, like I said, the worst case scenario is that it's amazing. So like you can't just make it twice as good just for randomly, because you didn't do anything special. You didn't earn that shit. You just rolled 2 Chronormus. You don't deserve to double all your stats. You don't deserve to just magically I have twice as many stats now. And we have so many tools to fill the board with Leroy, with Queen. You can play Coiler, blah blah blah. Like it's so easy to offset the downside of putting all your stats on one minion, because we saw that with Theodore. With Theo, I think originally people were a little bit skeptical about it because it only buffed 3 minions. So like, oh, what are you going to do for your other 4 slots? And turned out that was almost always a net positive, because you could run Selfless, you could run Blaster, you could run Rira, you could run Queen, you could run Coiler, blah, blah, blah. Whatever you need to counter your opponent. So yeah, I'd say this card is problematic. And if you are not consistently picking it up right now, when you see it, at least the first time around, you are probably misplaying it. Because yeah, you just create extra stats. It's almost, look at it this way. It's almost like you're adding like an 8th, 9th, or 10th board slot, because you get to transfer the stats that you had, and then you get to buy other minions. And if you think about the card in that way, it's very powerful. Some people might look at it and say, oh, I'm just creating too much of a liability into poison. But that early on, people usually don't have poison. And you get to just buy other minions, right? And fill your board. So
Yeah, and you also
yeah,
have to think about
phenomenal.
that you're gaining a gold every time you're selling a minion, right? So sometimes you'll think, oh, I'm buying a minion, then all the my efforts being put into this one, but you're actually every time you sell a minion, right? So let's say you have 7 minions on your board, you sell 6 of them, right? It's not like you've lost the gold. Now you have 6 gold to work with, right? So you can buy something and buy
Yeah.
another thing. So uh, definitely pretty good.
Yeah. So there's a comment in chat as well about it being a tier 4. I've had so many games where I say, well, I'm kind of dead, so I'm going to roll on tier 4 until I hit a Chronar move. I've recovered so many games where I'm like, yep, I hit a Chronar move, and now I'm back in the game. It's yeah. It's very, very strong.
Yeah,
And yeah, also works with Nadina, which is more ridiculous. So you could have 2 of them or so, and then Divine Shield.
you've kind of reminded me of like the stuff we talked about in the patch. Like how many of that was accurate? Like is magma lock a problem? Is massive realities a problem? You know, those kind of questions that we were talking about. Is Toxin on 5 balanced? You know, like
Right. Yeah, we can kind of go back. So from the games I see,
mm-hmm,
I would say that the cards that stand out, Chronormu,
mm-hmm.
Greta,
Right. Yeah,
and
Greta's with
Ghoul of the
Augur
Feast.
still too good, right?
Yeah. So Ghoul of the Feast, I think, was an easy call,
Yeah,
and
of course.
I'd say it's slightly worse right now just because undeads aren't always in, so it's not like you can always pick up those tokens and push for it. Undeads currently have a 75% appearance rate instead of 100.
Oh, why is
Um,
that? It's not
oh,
50?
that's. I think it's. I think they're just gradually rotating them
Oh,
out.
okay, okay.
Yeah. But of course, I mean, you can tell at the start whether you are, whether you can play it or not.
Right, right.
But what I'm saying is like people have this like very very big habit of building a token board. So right now, I think we're moving away from that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean you can't do it when you see it, right? So you can set it up yourself. Another card that has surprised me is Corpse Refiner, which is the I'm not sure if we talked about it last time.
Corpse Refiner. What card is that?
It's the 2-drop Pirate Undead that gives you a
Oh yeah,
gold
yeah. Oh, that card. Yeah,
or
yeah.
Avenge. Yeah.
Yeah, that card is
So
good.
yes, at the very very beginning, I thought it was a bit of a meme card
Yeah,
where 4 Avenge 4 was a bit much, but now I see like no, it's just about right because if it was 3, it'd be
broken.
broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way how you look at this card is you pick it up early, but
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to add it to the board later. So it's kind of like a gambler with upside a lot
Yeah,
of the
that's
time.
how I look at it too. Exactly. It's a
Yes.
gambler that that would
That
upside.
could do more. Yeah, if you can have it proc 2 times, it's a gambler, and the gambler is a darn good minion.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you do lack
One
the
attack.
one
Yeah,
attack
but
point.
who cares?
Well, the upside is that it's an undead, so a card that works exceptionally well with this is Skull. If
Mm-hmm.
you can
Yeah.
turn 3, sell your thing, buy Skull Corpse Refiner, it's so good because the Skull adds 2 health, so it
Mm-hmm.
just makes the Corpse Refiners very
So
tanky. So
tanky.
4 health total. So then you're working with a 7 health minion instead of 3. So that's obviously going to be very very durable. And the skull itself is 2 bodies for the Avenge, so it's a wonderful combo.
Yeah, and the
The
pirate
amount,
synergy is amazing because
yeah,
fill
you
in the
can throw
blank.
Captain in there. Yeah.
No, no,
No, no, no, no,
no.
no, no. No, I do. No, it's good. No, you're memeing. But I've had Scallywag, Captain Corpse Refiner. That's a really good start because you get your money and you're strong. So it's actually good. The fact that it's a
I'm
pirate
not.
matters.
I'm not buying it. It's not. It's not that good. Uh,
Double, I mean, like single or double Captain openers. Yeah, I buy Captain quite a bit.
Give me
Anyways,
any
that's
other type besides pirate, and I'm happier.
in the early game.
Except
I'm
for
not so
Murlocs.
sure.
Well, but yeah, except for Murlocs.
Like it being a beast early, like later on Bird Buddy, but
Bird
then
Buddy, yeah, the Bird Buddy value. Is it just me or Gambler's just a better unit? I would say it's just you, honestly. But I think if you have synergy, then this is better. But if you have no, like if you just have no procs, you can't proc the Avenge at all. Obviously,
yeah.
Gambler's gonna be better. But if you have any
That's the
synergy at
obvious
all,
answer. Yeah.
yeah,
The obvious answer is if it's procs, it's better than gambler.
yeah.
That's how you look at it. So you have to look at your board and you have to envision the fight and say, is this procking, yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, depending on how optimistic or pessimistic you are, you're like, it never procs, it always procs.
Never
So
procs, yeah.
it's like if I don't have 4 taunts, it never procs. So yeah, so if you're selling it for less than a gambler, then you're doing it wrong.
You're probably just playing in the elo where people aren't selling it for like 9 gold.
Yeah, I routinely sell this for 6 gold, 7 gold, 8 gold, and it's
Yeah,
amazing, right?
yeah.
So a very standard play is power level 6, sell this thing and start rolling on
Yeah,
6
yeah,
and
then
buying
grab your
foodstuffs.
yeah, for sure.
So that is and triple this all the time as well, which is amazing. It's like you get so much money. So yeah, anyways, that's a minion that just surprised me where I tend to buy it quite often, and I tend to also push for it a bit. Like I'll pick Brucon, try and get the tokens, and then Corpse Refiner. I'll start with the Risen Rider because that's such
Mm.
a such a free proc when you have this thing.
Yeah, because
But
Risen Rider
yeah,
didn't need more reasons to be picked up.
more reasons. Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons that went away now because, as
That's
you
true.
mentioned, and that's I think in general are just weak. If you're not
Putricide,
Putricide,
yeah.
then you high roll, or
And you
you know,
want
you
to
just have a really
create
good start, right?
titles,
You have a
yeah.
super early Anubrak, or you know, like double sister and then a
Mm.
board, like, but that's not even like the, you know, double sister, that's not winning you the game most of the time.
Well, it won me my last game. You know, I tell you, I also had future side though, so it's not
You
fair.
were future side, okay,
Yeah.
so that doesn't count then, yeah.
Mm.
So there's two things we were talking about here. Like one is like problematic cards slash cards that are really strong and good that I might not have really emphasized on, and the other was how does that stack up to our predictions and things we talked
Right.
about and
Right.
questions we had last time. Now I will say that I still have a fair amount of magma locks on my board,
Okay.
but as predicted, um, Leroy and Queen are
Mm.
back in fashion. So I find myself skipping the master quite often, where it needs to happen quite organically. I don't want to force it on my board later in the game. So
But magma
essentially, it
locks
needs
are
to,
good,
yeah.
but masters has the problems of being Leroy easy.
Yes. So you if you get it early enough, you can kind of build around it where you're going to pick up other
Right.
taunts, and it's going to be, you know, it's going to be that big that it's worth the risk, where you know, I'll taunt my other stuff, because if you can create a unit that has to get Leroy or Queen or you win, that's good.
Hmm.
But if it's just like a reasonable unit that can still get value traded, it's like, why am I really, you know, doing this then?
Investing in
Because
this, yeah.
it's yeah, it's so easy for people to hit it with Leroy or Queen. But yeah, so I think that's a big part of why we don't see that more right now, just because like it was a lot better during the token
Mm.
meta, because you just were uncontested, unchecked growth on your master with Magmalox, which is very fun. The minion, I tend to, I would say I force it in a way. Of course, I never truly hard force, because that's not good. But I will lean very heavily in the direction of Greta, and it's because she has so many applications where, especially in lobbies where pirates and Nagas are in,
Mm.
man, it's good.
It's good with Hogger. It's good with the 4/5.
There's so many things you can use. I'd say the main source of bullshit is Ball of Minions. You
Well, yeah,
very
yeah, that's true.
yeah.
Yeah.
You very so this is another thing, right? The worst case scenario for Greta Ball of Minions is you are
Amazing.
adding 20/20 to your board instead of 5/5.
Yeah.
The best case scenario is I got to buff it to a 50/50, and I'm now adding 200 to my, or what is it, 100 to my
100,
board.
yeah.
Yeah, which is that's pretty good, you know, when you're able to do that. So the amount of times where I can like the way how I play APM Pirates right now is I just have Greta with Hogger,
Hmm.
and then I juice up a ball of minions, and then I just Greta it and sell it, and then I do it again the turn after. And if you have enough of a lead that you can be greedy, you can just hold all of them and do it in the same turn. And then what you do is you just have like 3 or 4 golden ball of minions on the board, and you make a chain reaction
Yeah, you don't
where
need to
you have one
cry.
big ball that
Yeah.
jumps to the other ball, and then it jumps to the other ball. And whee! So, but that's when you're like, okay, I can afford to not do this for like 2 turns or
Hmm.
something, right? Or I guess if you're reconnecting and you got a fast computer and stuff, maybe you'll be able to set it up in 1 turn. But for me, I tend to just play a little slower, and so if I want to do that, for me, that's like a 2 turn project at the very least. But I mean, doing it every turn is still amazing, because you have to think about it this way: all the buffs from APM Pirates, the majority of it comes from a strong arm. You can have Salty Looter, you can have Peggy, but especially if I want to keep Greta on the board space is a little bit of an issue. So I find it a lot easier to run a brand, run my Hoggers and my Greta, maybe a Peggy or so, and then I will just play Ball of Minions, slam all my buffs onto it, then make it golden, and then sell it. And that essentially makes my strong arms twice as effective. And they already are very good if you're playing APM Pirates,
Yeah,
of
with
course.
Bran, yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah. If you can get Golden Bran and you have
Hey,
a strong arm.
let's not go into that.
No, I mean, I played a game where I had Golden Bran and I rolled enough to make a Golden Strong Arm as well. So that was a ball of minions that went from 0 to hundreds plus in 1 turn. So just that, right? So we're not counting any of the Peggy buffs, any of the other buffs. Because the cool part as well is if you are infinite, time is your resource, not money. So you can buy Smogger and stuff. So you can make that ball of minions very big, very fast. Where before it's not maybe that worth to buy a jug or something, right? But when you know that you're going to make that ball of minions golden and you're going to sell it, all the buffs on it are twice as effective. So if you can buy enough pirates that you have enough of a bank, you can buy the 2/7 undead buffer, the 2/6 neutral plus 6 HP buffer, smoggers, jugs, and that is going to allow you to buff a lot faster with fewer actions. But it does require you to have a bit of a bank because obviously those things aren't pirates and you have to pay full price for them. The
Imagine you have to pay
ludicrous,
full price for pirates.
ridiculous. Like when you have 20 gold in your hand and you have to pay 2 gold for a smog, it's like, ugh. Plus 18, and I have to pay 2 gold. This is outrageous. Oh, let's talk to the manager. Now the ridiculous thing is that Greta and Ball of Minions are both pirates. So you don't even have to count your money for them. Like you just always buy. And you know how many Elizas you see when you're playing like APM pirates and you just buy and sell them. So it's the same thing with Greta. You just see a lot of Greta, so you can just cycle them. Very, very. Oh, I will say one interesting thing that you have to pay a lot of attention to when you play Greta is that you can't have 3 regular hoggers because they combine at the start of the turn and then you lose your infinite status.
Oh no!
Yeah.
No, the worst. So I
No,
have
no, no,
to.
no, no. No, that can lose you the game, right? Because you're not infinite anymore, and then you have to roll another hogger within 10 gold or it's over, and your turn is done. You have to keep that in mind. Like you lose your infinite status. It's a huge deal, whether you have 1 golden hogger or golden hogger, regular hogger. So I buy the extra hogger, but I will sell it at the end of the turn if I don't find a triple, because otherwise your regular hogger that you made golden with the Greta hammer is going to, or gun in this case, is going to turn into a normal hogger at the start of the turn, and it will triple before you can play the gun. And yeah, I lost the game like that, so I am now very aware that like, oh, I have to sell this hogger. I can't keep it.
That's a mistake that happens twice, and then you never again.
Yeah, once or twice, and then you're like, yeah, okay, I'm going to pay attention to that. But that is all just a bit of a side tangent describing Ball of Minions Greta interaction.
Basically, why is Ball of Minions designed the way it is?
Yeah, yes, it opens up a lot of abuse potential.
I'm shocked. Like some cards, I'm like, this is gonna be gone in a week. And then 2 months later, it's still here, and I'm just like, that's weird. Yeah, but yeah, guess it's fine.
Yeah, I wonder how long we're gonna have Chronormu available as well.
They're so lucky
yeah.
they're not doing Lobby Legends every month, because then you would just see this. It would just be so stupid, right? And you would have these like, how is this okay? These players are trolling the games. they're just staying on 4 with Varden, and they won. They did nothing. They just got infinite like Chronormu stats. That's all they need. Like you'd just be hearing like, oh, like, how is this? Putricide won again? Oh wow, I can't believe it. Like, oh, heroes are so important. You just get nonstop problems if they were actually doing these Lobby Legends this month. So they're kind of lucky for that.
You definitely have more time to polish the game for a competitive scene. Because the interesting part is that those players are, they've played so much and they're so good that they'd be doing it better than I am right now for sure. And the stuff I'm doing is already quite ludicrous. So it's almost like I can't wait to see what you guys are going to do with this. And like the Greta, I talked about it with the interaction with Ball of Minions, but I'd say another one that is maybe not so obvious but insanely good when you think about it, it's Myrmidon. Because the jump from a normal Myrmidon to a regular Myrmidon is so nasty when you think about it, right? Because you go from double to triple, so that's just so many extra stats.
So you
So
go from
this
a
is
6/6 to an 18.
Yeah. You get
18,
but
18.
you throw spellcraft on it, right? So let's say that you have +4/+4 from a shoal that is normally +8/+8. But then with the ×3, you go at the +12, +12. So everything just starts counting so much more, right? Every Atessa buff is better.
That's how I've lost the game. They were playing Greta, and then they didn't hit their Myrmidon, and then next turn they did, and I was like, oh, that's
then
500, 500 now. Oh,
that's a lot of
I
stats.
guess I
Yeah.
can't do
The
that anymore.
the nasty one is when you have 2 Gretas and you make a Golden Wrangler. And then that Golden Wrangler adds +4/+4 per spellcraft permanently, but the 4/4 is actually +12/12. So you have to look at it there. Even the gun you apply to the Myrmidon is a permanent +12/+12, which is so ridiculous. So that's why I said, like, it's not something you think about when you think about Greta. You're like, oh, flashy with the Hogger and the Atissa and all that, but Myrmidon is actually a super solid target for this.
Isn't the
Pashmar is
4/5?
also
Yeah. Okay. Good.
yeah.
So, yeah.
I think the way I would usually goes with Pashmar is I have them, and then I push into 6, and the Pashmar itself gives you a gun.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'd say I play a ton of Pashmar games right now. I had one day where I looked at my tracker and I had 6 Pashmar games in a row. And I
In
was
a
like,
row. Okay.
in a row. Yes. Obviously, you need to be lucky enough that Nagas are in, but I think that gives you a little bit of an idea of how my games look like. So I do favor that Avenge setup. I play a ton of games where I think 2 games this week, I can just remember that I was on tier 4 and I just bought like Ring Matrons and Pashmars. And then I tripled into Greta. And then from there on, I just took off. So a game where you don't really, those games where you're on tier 4 and you look at your board and you're like, Jesus, how am I going to get out of this shit? That happens to me from time to time, where you don't really have a triple, you're not that strong. So I usually love just buying good pairs, and Pashmar pair is one of my favorite right now. So, and obviously roll for Chronormu. If dragons are in, roll for Chronormu. If you're in that spot, that can also help you. Yeah. So yeah. Long story short, I love playing with Greta right now, and I think she's definitely a minion to be on the lookout for. Probably not as problematic as Chronormu, but most likely still a bit too strong. And also, just any minion that makes Infinite Pirates a lot easier is a little problematic, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Sounds great. I don't have too much that I would say is problematic in this game.
you want to rant? You want to rant on some snap shit?
Nah, I mean, they're nerfing Surfer and Zabu Copium, so we'll have to see how that actually works out. But yeah, in this game particularly, I do think you covered a lot of the problematic things. I don't think there's anything that jumps out to me as like, oh, what about this card? Is it problematic?
Right.
I played Caligos today, by the way, but then I lost to Greta Hogger, and that was
yes. Well, infinite money distinctly better than finite money.
Yeah.
Funny enough,
it's not fair.
I will say I do say that sentence less since it's no longer Tony. It's a step up, because there is still that difficulty of having to specifically get this 6-drop instead of just rolling into a Tony and a Hogger. But it's still too accessible, in my opinion. Because the moment you see someone having infinite money, it's just it's
over.
There's just no question about. 1 second, my cat is.
How dare your cat interrupt us?
Yeah, but I mean, this drives me nuts. She literally sits outside of my door for 2 minutes straight, meowing to let her in, and then she's in, and she's like, "Why the fuck is this door closed? I can't believe she's just." So let me let her out.
She just wants freedom. That's all. That's fine.
She just wants to let me know that she calls the shots. Right? If I tell you to open the door, you open the door, and then when I want to leave again, you open the door again. It's that easy. But yeah, the notion of giving a player infinite resources, it's so overwhelming to start to think, how do I beat this? And the answer is like, you don't. And there's a lot of other strategies where you can at least start to think of a scenario where you're like, okay, I could do this, I can do that.
Yeah,
maybe with the queen, maybe with the Leroy, right? But assuming that you are going up against a competent player, and they're playing APM Pirates,
You should never assume that.
then it's over because you don't win. Yeah, you should assume they're bad because otherwise you can't win.
You can't win.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I mean, if they crossed their T's, dotted their I's, they're gonna have the Selfless, they're gonna have the Titus. It's gonna be a Golden Blaster. It's gonna kill all your Leroys, your Queens, or whatever, and you have no chance. So that is really the nasty part. But anyways, we don't we talked about Infinite Pirates before on the previous batch. It's not as common right now in my experience. But yeah, still quite demoralizing if you go up against someone with infinite money. Trying to think about something else that I play. I will say that this is something that you might not be automatically doing, that a lot of top players automatically do. Just for the listeners right now, it's your hero selection changed drastically after quests rotated out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do want to highlight that just for a second because I do get questions sometimes, right? Like, oh, how good is Kurtrus now? Or good is this and that? So heroes gain a lot of playability, um, depending on what they do, right? So if you are in a quest meta and you have heroes that just fight, those heroes get a lot better because you can fight and then use your quest to win the game. So like fighting heroes are like you get an Edwin, you get a Kurtrus, right? Heroes that just pump up stats early, put out some tempo, and then they can run away with their quest and win the game.
Right.
If you take away that additional mechanic of winning the game, how do you win the game? It's with a triple. It's with getting a high tier unit early, or it's with some really nasty power leveling, right? And then just buying that 6-drop straight from the shop. So then you start to think about which heroes have access to that earlier than other heroes. And it's almost always going to be heroes that can manipulate the economy. So Barov, Jandis, Hooktusk, Zirella, Cookie, Gilwing, Gallywix, right? All these heroes that have an extra minion hero there, a cheaper minions hero there, more gold hero there. Like they get so much better. And it's super obvious if you've played the game a lot and you play at a high level, you're like, oh, instant change of mentality.
Yeah.
This is it's funny. It's like I didn't pick Omu for like 4 months. Now it's like, oh, Omu is great. Because yeah, it's the same thing. Omu just has more money and you can level faster. But it was really bad during the quest meta because it was 0 armor and you wouldn't want to level anyway because you were completing your quest. So it's like 0 armor with the pretty awkward hero power. So yeah, whatever. I just thought I threw that out. I thought I threw that out.
That's a great point you bring up, Shady. Full of surprises, full of great points. We love to hear them from here. I'm very lacking in that particular capability right now, so you definitely have to hard carry this fight here.
That's fine. I mean, you're yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Colin's been enjoying Snap, but that's okay. Can be he's casually grabbed rank 1 NA. So as he does.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of foolish to not, at least pursue that.
Gotta
a little
milk
bit,
it while it's good. That's
exactly. Got to get that rank 1 viewership. Yeah.
But other than that, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we had a healthy meta talk. There's also like not that many changes. I think it was good that you brought up like, oh, let's think about our last predictions and this and that, and what's what stuck, what didn't. So I like that. We can definitely come back, next week, and if there's been no patch, it'll be something similar where we just talk about what works and what doesn't, and maybe come back to this week and see if there's anything I ranted about right now that's what, I changed my mind about this. But
Chrome Normal isn't actually that good. Don't change
exactly.
it. Leave it the way it is. What I was talking about last week, that was silly.
Rolling into it. Rolling in effectively you just roll into an anima bribe in the shop. You're like, ooh, anima bribe, nice.
That's kind of good, yeah.
I can do anima bribe for one too.
It's an anima bribe that only hits the same minion. You know what I mean? It's actually better than the anima bribe in that case, right?
Yeah, well, the weakness is that you can't add it to your cleaver
your
deflect
divine shield or your cleaver. Yeah. Okay,
but the huge upside, like you say, is you can't miss. So the problem you had with anima bribe back in the day is, well, I think a lot of people
buy everything. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, right? A lot of people thought they had to do that, but what you did is you just sell your shit and you see where it lands.
Yeah, I see.
If it lands on the right thing, you don't have to buy everything. But
Yeah,
a
right.
lot of people, yeah, a lot of people at the start, it's because they played Daryl, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
oh, this is the Daryl quest. So what you do with Daryl? Well, you buy everything because you don't want to land the hats on the wrong thing. But yeah, funny enough, it was actually just correct to sell your big shit straight away.
Yeah.
If it lands on the right minion, don't waste your gold. Just
Right,
buy the
right,
good
true.
thing and roll.
And if it lands on the wrong menu, just buy that menu and sell
Yeah,
it.
then buy that. And then a lot of the time, you ended up buying the whole shop anyway because the thing you want is obviously
It's
the last thing
less,
that
yeah,
gets hit.
because that's how Bob works. Yeah.
Exactly. But that's and then most of the time, like your gold is awkward and like, oh, I didn't want to sell this one. Well, I guess I have to do it. But yeah, the huge upside with Chronorma is that never happens. It's always on the right target, and yeah, that's a fair trade off. Very fair in terms of like you'll take it.
Absolutely. All right.
All
Sounds
right, good stuff.
great. Sounds great. Thank you guys for joining us. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you had a good time. Hope you learned something. Or not. As long as you had a good time. You actually don't have to learn anything here. Like
Yeah, you
that's
can hang out.
yeah, don't even if you lost some, you got dumber. That's fine. As long
Yeah, you
as
don't
you're
have to put
enjoying the time.
you have to put a lot of pressure on them, right? They don't have to learn anything.
But you can catch us at Educatedcollins and Shady Bunny Live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube as
I'm
well.
making good YouTube content now,
Yeah,
guys.
I
So
would say, yeah, he
check
is.
it out.
He is. By the way, guys, check out the Shady Bunny YouTube. It is popping, that kind of thing. But yeah, take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you guys next time.
Have a good one.